This portion of the CU podcast is brought to you by the Perfect Gene. Let's talk about jeans, shall we? I've received a few pairs of the Perfect Gene, and they're basically the unicorn of jeans. They fit great, look fantastic, and are so comfy, I sometimes forget I'm wearing pants. In case you didn't know, this is an ad, and the Perfect Gene told me to say this, but I would say the same thing regardless. They really do live up to the name.
Say goodbye to stiff cardboard denim and hello to comfort. These jeans fit like they were custom made, stretch like you wouldn't believe, and look fantastic. The fabric is as soft as a baby duck. The Perfect Gene also has a seriously massive range of sizes, with 6 fits from skinny to thick, waist sizes from 26 to 50, and lengths 26 to 38. It doesn't matter if you're a short king, big daddy, or someone in between, you can find the perfect fit for the body you're rocking.
You love the Perfect Gene, don't you?
I do. I was really skeptical initially. I didn't think I was going to like a stretchy jean. I thought it was going to be like sweatpants or jeggings or something weird like that. But no, they fit great. They're comfortable.
I feel like I can do a Van Damme split in these if I want to. Yeah, my split days are far behind me, but the minor gray is good. You got all shades of blue. You can't go wrong.
The Perfect Gene always has free shipping, exchanges, and returns. You can have peace of mind knowing that your order is completely risk-free.
It's finally time to stop crushing your balls in uncomfortable jeans by going to theperfectgene.nyc. Our listeners get 15% off your first order, plus free shipping, free returns, and free exchanges when you use code CUPodcast15 at checkout. That's 15% off for new customers at theperfectgene.nyc with promo code CUPodcast15. After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support the CU Podcast and tell them we sent you. F your khakis and get the Perfect Gene. Ian, it's the fall of Nintendo 64. Not meaning it's going away or it's declining. It's the autumn of Nintendo 64.
Sure is.
And this was a product that we talked about when it was announced over a year ago. The Analogue 3D, their FPGA Nintendo 64 system. They said it couldn't be done at one point. 8-9 years ago, Hyper can remember, they had, I believe, at an E3 or CES, they showed off their N64 system, which like never went anywhere. They said, oh, this is coming soon. At the time, we said, we don't think it's going to be coming out. And it never came out.
Yeah, my argument then was whatever they bring out is going to function worse than a Nintendo 64. Yes. There's no reason for them to bring this out.
Because an FPGA didn't exist, it'd be totally emulation based. And N64 emulation has made leaps and bounds the past years, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But 10 years ago, it was not in a great state, for sure. But it's gotten a lot better year after year. So the FPGA for an N64 was always like, I'm not saying it was, like the city of gold. It doesn't exist. We can't get to it. But FPGAs and writing the transistor level, code to emulate how the hardware functions. You're basically writing how the hardware functions so that you're taking software emulation out of the picture as much as you can.
The Nintendo 64 occupied the same sort of space that the Saturn did, in that the era it came out in, there were other things that were not nearly as complex, but the way they were, the architecture of the Saturn and the N64, because Saturn emulation is something that actually came into usable reliability during the course of this podcast, and same with N64 emulation, two things that existed back in the mid 90s.
Sure.
And meanwhile, things like the PlayStation were emulated during the PlayStation's lifetime.
Sure. So again, with an FPGA, remember, you're going to you're starting from the hardware level, and then you're putting the software into that hardware duplication as much as you can modern-wise for how it originally was. So it's more authentic to the experience of how the original hardware was. It's the closest you're going to get trying to redo it in the modern era, unless you turn the fucking plants back on. In Japan, Ian goes over and starts pumping out the same Nintendo chips again, and it does the boards from scratch. This is the best we're going to get, is unless you obviously modify an N64 with a kit. But we'll get into that. That's pricey. That's not something everyone knows how to do. And those HDMI N64s go for hundreds of dollars on eBay. I looked. I don't know if you looked that up. They are not cheap.
I knew that was the case. I didn't know if they were still going for that. But my understanding was that HDMI kits for N64s plus a professional installation was still a pricey endeavor.
Sure. So, okay. The Analogue 3D. Pre-orders went live a few days ago. White and black consoles. The white consoles sold out, I believe, within 48 hours. I pre-ordered the white console. Seemed like that was the more popular one than the black. Form factor looks cute. nice and curvy. 4 controller ports, 4 original Nintendo 64 controller ports.
I think it looks great, honestly. I'm not a person who normally likes the N64 the way it looks, well, in general, but I've never liked the look of the system. This is interesting to me because it really does maintain much of what makes the N64 form factor unique, but it just looks cleaner and better.
Yeah, there's more curves out. Looking at my jungle green one on the ground, there's more curves. It looks about 90% the size of it. It looks like it's probably a little bit not as high up, in terms of the width. It's probably close. You got your power button, your reset button there. There you go. There you have it. So, it's $250.
I'd like to point out that I think there was, which is exactly where I think I would have pegged it, because that's kind of the area that all of their releases have been in. Sure. I think they know their market. I think they know what the market will bear in terms of non-limited edition units. Took me a minute to be like, why is he doing that? Oh, it's been a minute. I'm tired. But I think a lot of people were angry in various communities that Analogue was releasing this, and there was a lot of talk from people who I don't think had any ideas what was. Who's angry? I don't know. Just other folks that this thing was going to be $300, $400, $500.
What?
And it's like, I think
based on what though?
Based on nothing. Based on I couldn't tell you. And I thought it was amusing when this was announced at $250 because it was always ludicrous that this was going to release for anything above $250.
What's been their most expensive stuff? $250, right? Have they even done a $300 on them?
Yeah. There was no way that this was going to release for more than $250.
Duo was $250. Pocket was $200.
I think Pocket is now $250.
But it's always been $200 to $250. I think if this was $500, they wouldn't sell much of any of them.
Right.
Come on, people.
I have my issues with Analogue, but a lot of people take Analogue personally, and that's silly.
Okay, I don't have a lot of issues with Analogue. Obviously, their marketing has improved dramatically in the past years.
I didn't say a lot. I said I have issues with.
But we both had issues with their marketing and lack of communication years ago. They've gotten a lot better.
I think the Pocket was a big turning point for them in terms of how they handle pre-orders, marketing, and how they present themselves to the public.
Yeah,
because the Pocket was what put them on it put far more eyes on them.
Sure, for whatever reason, that hit at the right time. Maybe because we're still kind of in the pandemic too. Maybe that was part of it. Well,
and it maintains its popularity as people realize that it can be used as
open
other
FPGA.
consoles, open FPGA.
So this does not have open FPGA. Like, it doesn't. The Duo does not either. Just to let people know. But obviously, it's going to play all your cartridges and probably a flash card because all the other consoles do the standard flash cards. So because I also want to ask that, and it's like, well, if it functions as the console originally did, which in theory it should come pretty damn close, it should do that. So some of the other features. This is just the marketing. They spent nearly 4 years engineering an FPGA. No more incompatibilities found in software emulation like input lag, graphic, audio inaccuracies, timing, frame rate issues, and more. Yes, one of the issues with the emulations I brought up for some of the games is that for a lot of the development, the history of the development of emulation N64 always started with let's get the popular games running correctly first. Going back to the one that came out back in '99, HLE. But out of nowhere, where it was like, hey, you can run Mario 64, Mario Kart, Ocarina of Time.
Yep.
And then, so that's always been historically how they've had to do it, because a lot of N64 development, they had to hack basically the system to do things. Mm-hmm. They had to get around the cart limitations of storage. They had to really unlock things. Like look how much they packed into like Rogue Squadron, putting all those audio sound effects and stuff. Like they had to figure out how to do this stuff. Like the console out of the box didn't know how to do a lot of these things natively. And so when you try to then write software emulation, it becomes a mess. I mean, I'm not an expert, but that's basically what the history of the console has been. So that's why FPGA is important for that aspect of it. Okay. So what else you get? It's in 4K, which doesn't really mean anything because you're not, you know what I mean? Like the games aren't in 4K, but that's just buzzword. It's like, it's in 4K. It's like, that means you can run on your 4K TV. You're not going to have lag.
It'll look clean on your 4K TV. Yeah.
Yeah. But like the games aren't designed to look clean.
No, I know. But what I'm saying is
it's not look bad. Right. It's not going to be like out of sync or whatever else. They talk about the multiplayer. So obviously there's going to be a bunch of filters. I think at this point, when you think about analog products, like the filters is like part and parcel part of the experience in terms of have it look how it looked back then. But hey, what else can we do? Right? Like, what else can we do here? So yeah, that's my general thoughts about it. Obviously, there should be. Oh, here's the big part. It has Wi-Fi, so that's cool because then you can do the updates easier.
That is neat. That's something
Forgot that's a big one too.
The updating process for analog products has gotten better, and the guides are written very clearly and step by step. But I wish all of their stuff just had easy Wi-Fi updates.
Variable refresh rate, NTSC and PAL support, lag-free zero signal degradation, original display modes, CRT and PVM models. So it'd be nice to tinker with that a little bit on that. Remember, Nintendo had their ugly sort of muddy filter on purpose to sort of like
mask draw distance.
Yeah, there's sort of to smooth out the edges a little bit to hide that. So I guess we'll see what the different ones are in style. What else? Built-in expansion pack, built-in memory pack, so you don't have to worry about putting that in your controllers, or if you're not using it, if you're using a Bluetooth controller, you don't have to worry about that. That's very smart. I think I saw something online, correct me if I'm wrong, that you can transfer a real your saves from a real memory pack into the console.
Oh, that's neat.
That's really nice. So say you have your fucking save from a game back then. I don't know. Your what's a memory pack game that I was going to say No Mercy, but that has internal save, I believe. So
does it?
I was just trying to think like, well, real quick. I should look at a certain book and find out. The point is this: you can bring your saves back from 25, 30 years ago. So that's pretty cool. What else? Four controller style ports. There's also USB ports for charging and wired support. There's built-in 16 gig SD card pre-installed for the memory support and things like that. So there you go. Obviously, this will be hacked at some point. We can make that every other console they put out. Analog doesn't really care about that. Once it's out there, people open it up and load.
They say all the things they need to avoid any sort of legal repercussion, but it's not like they're going out of their way to prevent you from doing so.
I think the Wi-Fi updating to me, that's not that it is a pain to have to then go to the website, download it onto a memory card, put it in, install. Like
it's not a pain. It's just steps that. Yes, no, I can admit that's a very nice upgrade to what they put out. That's great.
I'm not going to say it's possible. This is pie in the sky, Pat. If eventually the community made it into like multiplayer online,
I don't think that's going to happen. I'm just
saying, like that's the fact that it has Wi-Fi though, maybe someone will investigate that and say, okay, what can this actually
I'm sure it'll be investigated. I just don't know if there's going to anything will happen.
And the community's done weirder stuff before. You know what I mean?
They have.
But that would be awesome, right? Play Ian.
It'd be great.
Play at virtual pro wrestling house.
I was going to say, No Mercy, and WCW, NWO Revenge. I do like the first Smash.
Did I hit all the big points before we get to the controller? Did I miss anything? I think
so.
Bluetooth Classic and LE. I don't know what LE Bluetooth is. Is that a new
It's a new standard.
Stronger Bluetooth. 16-bit PCM audio. Okay. Ships Q1 2025. That's how it's been, I think, the past couple times around, where you get the console about 4 months later. So
they've
tightened that up.
They've tightened that
up.
Well,
the pandemic was
a big thing.
During the pandemic years, it's you can't blame almost anyone for what happened then with the.
No, but I think it was still an issue prior to that too. That's definitely one of the things they've done that I think has really improved their outward facing.
They're probably a much larger company than they were 5 years ago, at least in terms of, so maybe the infrastructure, and they have partners that are now like, okay, this is a bigger business. There's a lot behind the scenes to go into making a console like this. But now this is like their 6th console, I believe. So we're getting...
Is it 6 already?
NES, Super, Genesis, N64, Game Boy, Turbo Duo.
Okay.
6.
There we go.
Wow. And from a little plucky company, I used to do the Neo Geo controllers.
Yeah.
That sent me one back in the day, the hardwood one. That was nice.
Wood.
So, all right. Any other thoughts on the console before we get the controller?
My thoughts on the console are, just in terms of talking to people, I think I seem to see a wide range of opinions in terms of how well it will sell. But if we've already sold out of one,
we sold out of half of them at least.
And when this came out, I said, there was a window in time where this could have released and been their most popular system of all time.
If it was a few years ago, you think?
Yes. I think that the interest in the N64 has died down a little bit, but I think this will still end up being one of their best sellers. A lot of people don't like the N64, but the people who do like the N64 love the N64, and there has always been, especially in my time at Luna, a need for a reasonably priced modern solution to the N64. Out of all the systems out there, it was the one that did not have one.
Well, let's see. What did they sell historically? It was like 30 million N64s. Nintendo 64. I'm just making a larger point here because now it's almost like how even if you didn't have it at the time, you knew about it, right?
Sure.
But you might have had a PlayStation. But maybe this would invite you to come back in and try it 30 years later.
Yes. Yeah, no, I think that's true of any of these systems, is that there's been the people who did not have them when they were younger now have an opportunity to try them and kind of, how would I say it, experience them the way people did at the time, in that it will have less of that rust on it that changes opinions. It'll still look nice on your TV.
I was close. 33 million worldwide units. And obviously PlayStation stomped them. They did like, what, 100 million, whatever it was. Something like that.
A lot.
So I guess the point is this. If people out there might say, well, Pat, if you wanted to play N64, why wouldn't you just get the old console? Maybe they're in the ecosystems where I don't want to have a separate CRT. Sure. Maybe I don't want to spend $500 on a pre-modded, HDMI Nintendo 64. Maybe I want something I think is going to last longer going down the road from a new company that's putting it out, where Nintendo's not going to support your N64 from 29 years ago. So that's their solution. That's their audience. And then they can still get some carts along the way, or just buy a flash cart and load it up and then be fine. There's a big audience for that. Not everyone's a retro gamer with a separate game room. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for a lot of people, this is a solution. So there you go. The controller. It's an 8BitDo controller. They partnered with 8BitDo in the past on almost all their consoles. It's not the Tri-Wing controller, where the analog, the control stick, technically trademark control stick, is not in the middle of the controller. It's on the top left, like a modern controller, and the D-pad is there, a real D-pad, but the buttons are still. You have your big juicy start button with the same looking font. You have the oversized B and A's and the smaller sized C buttons with the little globe on top. So it's replicated the layout, besides swapping the D-pad and the control stick. And there's no Z button on the back. The Z button is, I believe, near the R button. So I would not prefer personally to play some of the games with this, because you need that. If you're playing GoldenEye, for example, I would like to still hold it how you do with in the middle. But for some of the platformers and games, this will be fine. Controller.
I get it. I get what you're saying, but there have been controllers released for the N64 since, lots of them, that kind of use this kind of control scheme, and I don't hear a lot of complaints about them. And I feel like GoldenEye is one of the more popular games. I feel like it's more people just get used to it. Is it ideal? No. It's weird to me because I don't like the N64 controller, but to me it is part of that system's uniqueness, and to not have an 8BitDo controller that tries to mimic that is weird to me, when the whole thing about so many of these systems is mimicking and giving you the experience you thought you remembered having with them on modern hardware.
So the reason why it's troublesome for some games is that, like, the whole point of the Z button is that you can hit it with your left finger, and then with your right hand you hit another button. That's gone now.
Sure.
With this setup, unless I guess you can probably reconfigure, maybe the left L, you can make a Z. Is there a left Z? Either way, it's going to be awkward. Like,
if there's a left Z, then I don't see any problem.
Well, it's still going to be weird, because you're used to playing GoldenEye. If you're using the R to aim and your Z to shoot at the same time, this makes it a little bit weirder to do it intuitively. Or some of the racing games that use the Z button on the bottom to accelerate, things like that.
Sure.
So I'm just saying. I'm not saying,
but that goes back to what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, if you're trying to mimic the exact feel of these systems, it's weird to me to just not do an N64 style controller.
Okay, so looking at the control at the top, yes, there is Z's on both sides.
Okay, so that's far less of an issue, though.
So you can figure it out, but I think on some games you prefer to put in the original. Yeah, I think that's fair enough. But obviously the controller 8BitDos, no one really complains about them. It's $40 for the controller. I might. This might be a cool one to have for the PC as well. Yeah, if you're playing an N64 emulator or just something else with it, with that. Yeah, I can picture picking this up. Just for that alone, if I'm not going to use it with the console itself.
I do like the placement of the D-pad. I've found that I enjoy D-pads that are more inset.
Versus on the top left.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'd have to play it like that. It looks like they try to get the gate, how the weird octagonal gate of the control stick. Try to emulate that. That's always been one of the how interesting the N64 was in terms of analog, that they had that 8-way sort of gate.
Well, and so did the GameCube.
Oh, that's right. That's right. They've carried on.
That was a very Nintendo sort of thing for that era.
So if that's emulated, pardon the pun, like, well, then there shouldn't be an issue with it. And yes, it's getting harder because I still have control sticks that are tight, but obviously over 30 years or so, a lot of them are looser. So it is nice.
I mean, even when I was at Luna, I mean, the most of them would come in absolutely destroyed.
Yes, and there are OEM replacements, but I've heard sometimes they aren't up to the same standard as the original Nintendo ones.
That wouldn't be OEM.
I'm sorry, third party.
Third party. Yeah.
I mean, they're still online. I used to find destroyed ones at the swap meet all the time for like $3. I used to replace, the joysticks myself. Right. And yes, if you're doing a speed run or if you're playing competitively, I'm sure you can tell the difference. Even the minor, the minor difference.
You absolutely can. That was always something that made me laugh at Luna, when people be like, are you replacing the joysticks on the original ones? And it's like, man, you're buying a third-party controller at that point.
Yeah, but if you have to, if it's destroyed, it's destroyed. You just know.
Oh, no, but I'm saying the people who are like original hardware only, it's like the joysticks that I'm replacing these with are the same bullshit joysticks that are in the third-party controllers that you refuse to buy.
Yes. It's better than having a broken one that you can't use, but
right.
It's not going to feel 100% the same. But most people probably couldn't tell that you're like an expert or aficionado, that sort of thing.
They got better over time.
Sure. All right. So the white one sold out. The black one's not. I pre-ordered a white one. The controller, I'll think about the controller. I mean, they're usually nice. They usually send us a review unit for the past few consoles on them. Yeah, and I'm excited. I'm excited because of the next topic, Ian.